you for being here. We're here to talk about uh, 8 ways to boost performance and retention on your hybrid teams. If you've been following me, then you know I'm Aaron Schmuckler. I'm CEO and a company culture engineer at the Yes Works. We are working to help you make work good for people and to make people good for work. It's a really important and tall order, and we really get a lot of fulfillment out of the work that we do. I'm here today with Yvette Owo. Yvette, thank you so much for joining me to talk about what's on so many people's minds. So many leaders are trying to figure out, how do we keep people in this hybrid environment? How do we keep people happy? How do we keep people performing? How do we keep people from the kind of restlessness that we're seeing in the Great Resignation or the Great Shuffle, whatever you want to call it? Yvette, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, Aaron, thanks for having me today. And I'm so excited to be with everyone that's here with us live. Please drop in your questions. This is a problem that I'm hearing every day from owners across different industries, whether they're in vacation rental, whether they're in science and technology. And so this is really powerful for us to address. A bit of introduction about myself. Was ex-Fortune 50 executive, working at Accenture, working with Fortune 500s. And then I was like, I think small to mid-sized businesses deserve the same quality of help. So why not provide that? Um, and that plus getting hit by a car and deciding to make some changes to how I prioritize my life and doing what I wanted to do in terms of really making a more direct impact on business owners caused that shift. And so since then, I've been running, Aveto and Co. And so I either invest in businesses or I partner with owners and we help them with scaling. So growing your business and profitability while managing your workload. The second piece is, helping people get their business ready for sale so that you can sell your business for more. And then the third is growth by acquisition. So those are the three different ways we help owners achieve their business goals and create the life that they want. And this topic hits right on target for all three different audiences because no matter who you are, you need a high performance team either to get you to that scale, either to make your business efficient so somebody wants to buy it because it's sustainable cash flow, or because you're trying to integrate an acquisition.
Great. Well, thanks, Yvette, for introducing yourself. We have together 8 thoughts for you, 8 suggestions about how you can boost performance and retention on your hybrid team. I've got 4. Yvette's got 4. We're going to share them. We're also going to answer any questions that you might drop into the chat. Any comments are also welcome. I don't know about you, Yvette. I'm going to say that all of the suggestions that I have about how to boost performance and retention on a hybrid team, those are also going to apply to a remote team. They're also going to apply to an in-person team. What about you?
Yeah, I say, a lot of them, the principles apply. What becomes differentiated is some of the application, right?
Right. Yeah.
Maybe before you would say, I would pat the person on the back to give them a hug or whatever, right? Not doing that remotely.
Right. Okay. So we've got eight things to go over. Let's get to it. Yvette, what is your first suggestion for our viewers for how to boost performance and retention with their hybrid teams?
Yeah. So the first one, so this comes out of this comes from the fact that a lot of times if you have people that are in person in the office because they have to be, and then you have people that get to be remote X number of days, there becomes a disconnect. People almost feel like there's a class situation going on in your
Mm.
company, whether it's because they're blue collar, white collar, or just because they might be essential and more customer facing. So one of the challenges then is basically the team feeling cohesive. So one thing that we've implemented and works really well, it seems really simple, is pick a day for everyone to be on site and then do some things together. So those could look like, happy hours that your team helps plan, team building activities. Maybe you have a day for meetings. But what you want to make it clear to the people who have to be on site is that they are not valued less.
Mm.
You want to demonstrate that you're still one team and then also have these touch points where people can have the water cooler conversations. They can build the relationships. They can ask what was going on over the weekend, because fundamentally business is run by humans, right? And so we still need people to have that connection. And so you want to prevent that schism of office work, people who get to be remote and people who have to be on site.
I love that suggestion, Yvette, and I'll add to that when you're asking people to come to be on site, you've got to make good use of their time and their presence. That if you ask people to come and it's just kind of we want you to come because we all need to be together, as opposed to there is actually something that we are going to accomplish. We're going to make use of your being here. Then it's really going to go well. But if people feel burdened and then not rewarded by actually accomplishing, you're going to end up shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, you want people to walk away feeling like this was a good use of my time.
Exactly right. Yeah.
I did this because I was afraid I was going to get fired. Right? Like, I mean, it's kind of dramatic, but that's what the Great Resignation is showing us, is people, if that's what they're thinking, even if they're not saying it, that's the consequence that will happen, right? So that's why is that they'll walk away. So we want them to be engaged.
Yeah. Well, Sarah is saying hello to us. Hello, Sarah. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Sarah. Always great.
My first suggestion for you, and maybe you're already doing this, have weekly one-on-ones. You've got to have weekly one-on-ones. Every single people leader, every single manager should be having a weekly 30-minute one-on-one with every person that reports to them. And this is a weekly one-on-one that's not just about business. It's not just about getting things done. It's not just about the projects and performance. It's about building a strong relationship of trust. So one great way of building that strong relationship of trust inside the weekly one-on-one is to ask a really open-ended question right at the beginning. The beginning of the meeting is for the direct report. Something like, hey, how's it going? Right? That open. And then be silent, be quiet. Really demonstrate that you're patient to let their thoughts percolate, and that you really are interested in whatever's on their mind. And that is the strong way to begin this weekly one-on-one.
Yeah, I think that's, really powerful, because a lot of times people don't feel heard. And so you'll often ask, how's it going? But then you don't say anything back. And I actually have case studies of people who have quit, and that question was their last straw. If someone said, how's it going? They had come in from a tough week. Things are going on with COVID. Things are going on in the world. And their answer was like, actually, it's really tough. And the person just said, all right, talk to you soon. And that was their decision point for, this is the wrong company for me.
Yeah. And likely they were right. All right. We talk about people. It's trite and it's true. People leave their bosses. They don't nearly as often leave their jobs.
Yeah. And that's why it's really important, these conversations, because we'll do so much structurally, whether you think it's, pay. And there's a lot of great things we can do with performance management, with benefits and perks, but really understanding that the number one reason people leave is their job. And one of the top reasons people stay is because they feel like they have a best friend, right? So these these softer things have a high ROI, and you have to build them into your organization structurally and culturally.
Speaking of ROI on the one-on-one, I hear from managers all the time, I don't have time for that. I promise you, if you do this for 3 months straight, you will forevermore say, I don't have time not to do one-on-ones, because it prevents interruptions. It keeps people around, so you're not wasting time, trying to rehire. It's really a really critical, really excellent, very powerful, high ROI way to spend your time. All right, Yvette, your second suggestion is what?
Yeah, so my second suggestion is to ask people for what they need right now. And it ties into that also. Then you must listen. It doesn't mean that you can meet every single need and don't feel it as a demand, right? We are in partnership with our teams. So if a client were to tell you, I need X, Y, and Z to stay in business, you'd be like, oh, that makes logical sense. Well, we've moved into a world
Mhm.
where demand and supply is such that we need to start seeing our employees more as customers of our business, right? And so they can walk, and they are right now. So asking, so that can be in the form of surveys, and I would differentiate because different workforces may have different needs. And it can be, I can't say the name of it, but this is a Fortune 500 company that has a lot of blue collar workers in factories that were essential during COVID. And, they kept getting all these like emails saying congratulations. And then they were like, we're getting congratulations emails, but we don't have any pay bumps. We're taking more health risks, and so what they when they brought in new leadership that said, let me ask, and they said things like, you know what? In our facilities, we don't have enough bathroom stalls. If you would, or as at some facilities for women, they only have one stall and they have to walk 20 minutes to use the restroom. It was just changing basic infrastructure helped them feel like the company cared about them, right? In other situations, it might be someone says, hey, our on-site days aren't that useful. And then you ask, what would be more
Mm.
useful? So really then implementing what they say, right? Because you're building that back and forth relationship. And another example of when that doesn't work is when Apple said, "Hey, everyone, let's return to work because that helps with creativity, and you have to go on this day and this day." And a Slack message channel started that then became a formal letter to management, right? So whichever workforce, nor the size, whether you're small, whether you're big, people want to be heard. And it's you don't have to guess their needs. You can actually just ask them, and they appreciate being asked.
What I hear you talking about, Yvette, really is partnering with your people, right? They're not obstacles to your success. They are the means of your success. So you've really got to consider them partners.
Yeah.
Consider their demands and their requests as as reasonable and rational. Whether or not you decide to give in to their requests, right, or give them what they're asking for, they're reasonable, they're rational, and they also may not make business sense. So if you're going to say no, be ready to justify that no with calm, with compassion, with kindness.
Yeah, and I would say, whether you say no or say yes, and this will lead into another session later. It's a discussion. So the point is that we're sitting around. Imagine I say this a lot. Imagine we're sitting around the table, right? If you feel like it's like the union demanding on the capitalist, you already have an analogy that puts you against them.
Mm.
Last time I checked, you actually can't make money without them. So you need them. And
Yeah,
last time I checked, they can't make money without you. So they need you. Hence a partnership.
there you
So
go.
think of it as these are my partners. When we think the other person's either crazy or demanding or whatever, it's because we don't understand each other. So how can we come more to a place of understanding? Now that's going to require more transparency from you, right? So for example, in that situation where they had to build out bathroom facilities, they made the commitment, but then they also said, this is the actual dollar amount it's going to cost us to do this.
Mm.
This is the timeline that it's going to take. And so then people were like, you are investing with us, not just lip service, not just emails, but you're actually investing. And so the transparency of saying, this is what it's going to cost, or the transparency of saying, this is why we can't do this. And when you're doing that, you're saying, this is how our business runs. So you are actually educating on the things that matter for your business, whether you're saying yes or no.
I love it. What this conversation reminds me a little bit of a question that we got before this event went live. There's somebody asking, they're trying to hire people to come in to work in a lab, right? This is physical chemical work, right? It's got to be in person. There is no way for me to do lab work from my home office,
Yeah.
and people are not wanting to come into work. So he was asking, what do I do about this? And I wish I had a little bit of magic pixie dust that I could sprinkle on that to solve it. The truth is, your job is the job, right? If you've got an assembly line, if you've got a lab, you need people to come in. And so one of the benefits of having a knowledge job like one that would allow you to work from home is that you might be able to work from home.
Yeah.
So there's got to be things that you can do, ways that you can make the work appealing. What
Yeah.
is the culture like?
Yeah.
What is the reason that people are fulfilled, that are working for you? Make that a part of how you market your job. And how do you connect people to the value that their work is contributing, not only to the company,
Yeah.
but to the world in general? And I'll share a very quick story of an architecture firm that I worked with that was having trouble with churn before COVID, having trouble with churn at the lower level of these entry-level architects. And one of the things that we discovered in talking about the situation was that there was a beautiful building about 20 minutes away from their office that they had designed, that all of these entry-level people had had a hand in creating. It had been built. It was occupied. People loved the space. It was beautiful. And a whole bunch of these entry-level architects had never driven the 20 minutes to go see it. They didn't have time. It's not billable hours to go and see this building. So it wasn't considered a priority. Folks, you've got to prioritize giving people direct access to seeing the benefit of their work.
Yeah, and I love how you said that it wasn't prioritized, it wasn't a benefit to them because you built it beautiful, right? Thinking about the benefit maybe to you or to the business, but didn't put yourself in the shoes and say, if I now have the freedom to take that 20 minutes and maybe I spend it with my child, maybe that's my downtime. Maybe that's the time I spend doing my stretches in the morning or my meditation. Like, what is the opportunity cost that that person is giving up? So there has to be some kind of value at the end of the day because everyone's doing a cost benefit analysis on a real time basis, consciously or unconsciously. So I think that that's a really great example of like having that partnership discussion and putting yourself in their position. Or if you don't know, try asking. People are willing to tell you a lot of stuff these days.
All right. So here comes my second suggestion for how to boost performance and keep your people around. My second suggestion is every team has a daily standing meeting, and every person in that meeting has 3 questions to answer. What did I accomplish in the last 24 hours? Right? Not naming activity, but naming accomplishment, right? It's not if we're trying to plan an event, right? It's not, well, I called 3 different venues. It might be I narrowed it down to 3 different venues. That's an accomplishment, but it's not just the activity. It's what did you accomplish in the last 24 hours? That's question number 1. Question number 2, what do I intend to accomplish in the next 24 to 48 hours? Right? So the whole team knows what I'm after, and then I can choose to be accountable to yes, I accomplished that, or no, I did not. So that's question number 2. And then question number 3, what are the obstacles that stand between me and succeeding in that accomplishment, right? What if there's anything that might slow me down or get in my way, what are those things? And that gives people an opportunity to understand that what I'm trying to accomplish isn't easy. So if I do fail, there's some understanding there. And then as well, it gives other people an opportunity to say, I can help you with that. Here's a way that I can help lower the barrier to your success.
Yeah. So I think that's a really good one in terms of the content. And this is where we're going to dance a little. Uh, because I also know there are some cultures where they try to move away from meetings, right? And so I think the content is really good and want to add that depending on your culture, you can actually do that same thing via email. So depending on your team size is whether or not, if you have 30 people on a team, well, first of all, if you have 30 people on a standing meeting, that's different. That's a little drama too. But 30 people on a team replying all with these answers is frustrating, right? But if we're talking about small teams, like teams of 5, right? Small reasonable pods, this becomes more reasonable, or even if it's just direct to one person to direct report. So the questions I'll often ask people to say is, what did you achieve? What are your challenges? How can I help? And then if it's weekly instead of daily, what are your priorities? And so you
Yep.
can do this for as junior as an admin secretary, right? To as senior as your head of marketing. And you might make it weekly instead of daily because their projects are longer. So what that does, like Aaron mentioned, in terms of understanding what you accomplished, right? So we said achieved, right? So it's like, what did you deliver? So, you'll see times so you start to see a lot of things, like people who just list tasks are often not accomplishing things, either because they're confused. The reason could vary because they actually think just doing tasks is useful. So then you learn, the education is, hey, I want you to create an outcome, right? So, I've seen this where companies move in and someone says, I read the manual. And you're like, okay, that may work once, but after that, we want to know, what did you do? And this is really great with new hires because you start them right on in at the very beginning, understanding that this business is about outcomes and not activities.
Mm.
Not that activities do matter. And that's where you ask, what are your challenges? Because oftentimes people are scared to ask what their challenges are. But now you have a set, either daily or weekly form to ask for help with your challenges. So you say, what are your challenges? Then the next question is, how can I help? Which is really kind of a different version of what are your challenges, but it then moves the person to the next level of asking for help. And so a lot of times, if you're doing this for the first time, if someone says, like a client recently, someone said, I need more feedback. What they are telling you is they need a lot more feedback. People will
Not
not,
just a little, right?
yeah, people will usually not tell you the severity, right? And so that's why the frequency, unless I guess I was saying very senior, the frequency of daily is really, really healthy because you can nip a lot of things in the bud. So what might turn
Yes.
out to be, you don't find out. So usually you don't find out until the outcome is late. The outcome may be a 3-week project, but if they're checking with you daily, you'll figure it out a heck of a lot sooner. And then that last one about priorities. So that's if, again, that can be, that's if they have a lot going on. So if you're concerned about overwhelm, um, if you're like me, you tend to give people a lot of stuff and you're like, just do the most important ones. But how do you know if we all agree on the most important ones? Or oftentimes people are doing a good job, but they feel like they're underperforming because they don't know if your priorities align with theirs. So that's a great opportunity to align, to get help. And also the last thing is to feel a sense of accomplishment.
Mhm.
So they are actually getting to say to themselves, I accomplished this list of stuff at the end of every day or every week. And that is one of those things that people will often mention to do in personal development workshops. And so you're actually building personal development and a self esteem booster into how you are doing your performance management and staying connected with your team.
It's also just a tremendous driver of performance, right? Because performance is a reward that drives further performance. And how many leaders have we heard say about their people, what have you been doing all week, or what have you been doing all month,
Yeah.
right? And because if there isn't this very frequent and regular touch in on accomplishment, then it's
Yeah.
easy to kind of get into the rat race or the hamster wheel of
Yeah.
activity. And I love that you brought up the size of the group, right? Yes. When I'm suggesting that each team get together daily, I am talking about a 5, 6, maybe 8-person team. And this is a wicked fast meeting. It's fast paced. It doesn't take a lot of time. If your team is 30, then you might need to break it down, right? And so the last suggestion that I'll make about this, and then we'll hear Yvette from about your third suggestion, is that if this is something you want to do by email, consider that it doesn't have to be done at all, right? I would say have this meeting, or don't have this meeting. Nobody needs more emails that they're gonna ignore. All right, Yvette, over to you for your third suggestion.
Yeah. So my third one around hybrid and remote is, and this is especially for the people who have to be on site, is to really recognize them. So I've
Mhm.
talked about listening, but let us, so before we could play, we could ignore, right, the additional cost it took people to get to the office, whether that was the time, the money for gas, the clothes they had to put on, and during COVID, it was the potential risk of getting COVID, right? The opportunity cost of other things they're not doing. All of those are significantly more present to your on-site employees now than they were before. Um, and whenever someone talks about the benefit of not having to be on site, it's contrasting very much to the person who is on site. So I would say really, really actually reward them. So not reward them, and that's the emails. That's and different people like different types of rewards. But that could be the emails. That could be the recognition at the all hands. That could be saying, you know what, we're having an essential workers bonus because we know that you guys are coming in when other people haven't. One thing we did in a business where they have a housekeeping staff that has to come on site, and they just had a really busy season, is what we found out is typically they get the manager and the assistant manager get burnt out, and so they often get rewarded, but it's never planned. So I said, what do you think it would feel like to her if you actually said, at the end of the summer where I know you're typically burned out, I'm going to reward you. And he was like, that's a great idea. He was like, well, and then it's, what do I reward you with? Is it cash? Is it something else? But I was like, well, think about what is an experience she can't create for herself. So this was a small enough team that we could talk about 2, 3 specific leaders. Um, and in that particular situation, it was a single mom with several kids. Okay, what do you like? Probably time by yourself. So now if you reward her with something that requires her to get a babysitter, you've now added a
Mhm.
cost to this reward that requires scheduling. So we thought about brainstorming some ideas, and then also again asked. People also prefer, if people have 2 or 3 options, but they prefer the thing they got just because they chose it, right? And so now it's pre-planned that, based on performance, this reward will happen every single year. And the other thing about it is they're in an environment where it's actually really tight and really challenging to have that staff. And they have the lowest turnover of all of their competitors in the regional area for their housekeeping staff. So this is one specific thing we did for the leadership. There are other things we did at different levels so that they actually make more money per hour. They can actually make about $45 an hour um, because of how they changed performance management. And so we're really looking at ways to make things valuable. So this bucket is really around acknowledging and tangible rewards that matter to the person that is receiving it and to the group of people that are receiving it. Acknowledge the extra effort that they're making by going in, acknowledge the sacrifice, and not just pay lip service to it. And then I'll kind of conclude with this. I was talking to a leader who was talking about priorities, and how do I, there's so many things I care about, how do I prioritize, how do I communicate it? And I said, you know what, if you don't communicate it, your people know by your actions. So the question is not, how do you communicate? You are already communicating your priorities to people. So now it's, how do we show people that they are a priority? And I think you should do things to show to the people who come on site that you acknowledge the fact that they are doing this additional piece of coming on site.
I love that, and I'm gonna kind of highlight, I think, 3 of the things that you said.
Mm.
1, reward what you want, right? People are coming in. That's a really valuable, and for some people, like our guy with the lab, essential piece of the work. Reward that, right? Just like there's hazard pay, right? No matter what it is that you're trying to get people to overcome, some obstacle to the kind of performance or the kind of activity that you need, and you're going to need to give them an incentive for doing that. You also said that and I really love that you said this, one size does not fit all, right? Public acknowledgement for some people, especially public praise, right? Oh, we love what Yvette is doing, can be a disincentive, right? Some people do not like it, and other people thrive under that. So one size does not fit all. And I love that you suggested giving people options about how to be rewarded, because one size doesn't fit all, and because B, being able to choose increases our sense of the value of that reward. Love those thoughts.
Beautiful recap.
All right. My third suggestion to you, and I know some of you are going to cheer, and some of you are going to bury your head in your hands, and some of you are going to yell out loud, "I can't do that." I'm still going to recommend it. Please ensure that each of your managers has no more than 6 people, maybe 8, reporting directly to them. Right. And I'll say it again because I know you don't like it. Many of you don't like it. Ensure that each of your managers has no more than 6 or maybe 8 people reporting directly to them. The science shows, the science meaning the research, the data shows that when you have more than 6, if you're inexperienced, more than 8, if you really are experienced people reporting to you, then relationships suffer. The relationships suffer. You don't have those strong relationships of trust. If you don't have those strong relationships of trust, then people do not have a reason to stay. And it's really hard for those managers to effectively drive performance. So if you think you can't afford to promote more people, I'm going to suggest that you can't afford not to have this many people in management, so that you've got a correct distribution of people leaders to people being led.
Yeah, I think that's very powerful. What's his name? Bezos call it the one pizza rule.
Right. Yeah.
So if the team is larger than the number of people it takes to eat a pizza, then that team is too large.
Right on.
So, it does work, people.
Yeah. So they're doing something right over there. All right. Yvette, before we hear from you about your fourth and final suggestion, I'd love to give you the opportunity to tell people why they might want to get in touch with you and how people can reach you.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. So, if you are saying to yourself one of 3 things, okay, 3, one of 3 things. The first one being you would like to increase your profitability, right? And you are wondering, how do I do that? So, a great example is a client that we worked with, and in a 2-year period, including 2 COVID shutdowns, and this business had been in business 25 years, their profitability increased by 1,700%. I'm not making this up. This is 17 with 2 zeros at the end of it. And the owner's hours dropped down to 25. So much of what we said in this call was implemented. So many things. The second is around if you're trying to sell your business and you want to be able to get more cash at sale. So there are operational and also structural things that you need to do. And the third is around if you want to grow by acquisition. So those are the outcomes that you want for your business. You can hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm Yvette Owo. I'm literally the only Yvette Owo in the world. So hit me up on LinkedIn, or Yvette at YvetteOwo.com. So both those 2 forums would be phenomenal, and I look forward to being able to help you.
All right, Yvette. So the next question that I have for you is, what is your fourth and final suggestion?
So my fourth and final suggestion is kind of a wrapper of something that is always important. And we've talked about it in different ways, but this is a way to measure it, is, are you check in that you are hearing from people? And so what that means is, so we had an executive that emailed on a daily basis during a really tough time in their business. And in that business, she emailed daily, actually to a few thousand people, and she got less than 10 replies. Less than 10.
Scary.
So what that tells you is people don't feel comfortable speaking up. So this was kind of sprinkled into all the various things that Aaron and I said. But you really need to be checking that your people are speaking up to you about what they do and do not like. So this is not you looking for praise. This is not you looking for what you want to hear. This is
Mm.
you looking for the fact that people are saying what they want, and then you're also understanding what they want for the business. If your people aren't speaking up to you, or if everything they're saying sounds like an attaboy or an attagirl, then that means that they're not telling you the full truth of what they need to be fully engaged and what your business needs to be fully optimized. So the third tip is to be regularly receiving and expecting feedback about what works and what doesn't. And silence is a problem. All positive is a problem. And if you're not sure, think about it. Ask yourself, have you ever been in a situation where you worked somewhere and you didn't have positive and constructive feedback? You yourself, do you ever not have positive and constructive feedback for yourself, for your leadership, for your business? So there's always that opportunity for both. And that's when you know you're having a real conversation with your team.
I love it. Yes. Right. No problems are reaching your ears is a sign of a major, major problem. Yeah. If you are a leader who says, why didn't I know about this sooner?
Yeah.
That's another kind of litmus test for, am I ears open? Are people feeling comfortable enough to bring me problems early, right before they hit the proverbial fan?
Yeah. You want to kill the monster while it's small, right? So
Right
you got
on.
to find out about it while it's small.
Kill the monster while it's small. Okay. Folks, before I give you my final suggestion for how to boost performance and retention in your hybrid team, I'll say again, what we do here at the Yes Works is we help you cultivate a culture of communication and collaboration, high performance, a place where work is good for people and people are good for work. We're engineering culture because culture has so many interdependent forces pushing and pulling in every different direction, and it's really hard to if you haven't been paying really close attention to what influences culture, then it's hard to really sink your teeth into it and really grapple with it, because people are mysterious. Engines and machines are easy to understand if you understand them, right? You put A into slot B and out comes Z. People are not like that. And so when you're wondering, why do people behave the way that they do in my organization, that's a fantastic time to call me. If you're wondering, how can I get the behaviors inside my organization to change, including behaviors like people are leaving, or behaviors like people aren't bringing up the problems in the way that Yvette was telling you they need to do, that's a great time to call me. I love to talk about this stuff. I love to help business leaders make improvements. I try to make every conversation with me valuable, whether you're paying me yet or not. So you can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me at theyesworks.com. Like Yvette, I am the only Aaron Schmuckler on LinkedIn. I don't know if I'm the only one in the world. I certainly am the only one on LinkedIn. So before I get into my fourth suggestion, I'm going to call up this comment that we got from Betsy. She says, hopefully there will be a recording of this because she had to take a phone call. Betsy, I'm glad that this is valuable. The recording will be here on LinkedIn and at this very link. So it's being recorded even as we speak on LinkedIn. It's on YouTube, so you will be able to find it there as well on my channel, the Yes Works, and also on Yvette's. Yvette's, what's your YouTube channel called?
Oh, yes. Thank you. It's Yvette OO Coaching. It'll also be on Yvette OO Coaching.
Great. So you can find this recording all over. Bill Lennon says, for the next time, can you add a conversation about educating and building leaders in-house? What a great topic. I don't know if that's going to be the next time, but we've got a couple of things coming up in queue. I will add that to the list. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that question, Bill, because that helps us make sure that we are doing what's valuable to you. And so my fourth and final suggestion, in this environment where talent is at such a premium, I'm finding a lot of leaders are feel like they're walking on eggshells and they're trying not to alienate people. And and even before COVID, I would talk to a lot of leaders who do what I'm going to suggest you do not do. Do not skate past job requirements unmet. I'm going to repeat it, right? Don't skate past job requirements unmet. And those might be hard job requirements, like work begins at 8, right? That's a hard job requirement. There might be soft job requirements, like treat your fellow employees with kindness, right? You cannot let those job requirements go unmet for a couple of reasons. One is if you say you're required to be here on time, and then there are no consequences for not being here on time, then you no longer have integrity. And if you don't have integrity, people know it. And if people know it, then they don't respect you. And if they don't respect you, they don't give a crap about what you ask them to do. And they will not stay. Both the people who are skating by, not meeting those job requirements, will not stay. And even more importantly, the people who do meet their job requirements, the people who go out of their way, who go above and beyond, who bring that what they call discretionary effort, right? They don't do just the bare minimum to get by. Those people will certainly leave, because no high performer wants to be in an environment of mediocrity. So I'll put this one other way. If there are no consequences for missing a job requirement, then it's not actually a job requirement. It's just something on your wish list. Now, I'm not saying that you come down in a draconian fashion on anybody who is late once. I'm saying that something happens, something beyond, hey, please be on time. And I was in a group of CEOs the other day talking about this very thing. And one of them said, yeah, I used to work for a turnaround CEO who had come into my company. And on day one, people were 5, 10, 15 minutes late to the meeting. So on day 2, at the beginning of the meeting time, he locked the door. Now, I wouldn't recommend doing that without giving people notice. Hey, folks, I'm going to start locking the door at the beginning of the meeting. And at the same time, that is the kind of thing that I have recommended to people, because that is a consequence. It's not a consequence that you're visiting on people. It's a natural and organic consequence, right? And consequence is a neutral term. There might also be a consequence, right? As Yvette was saying, the consequence of you choosing to come in, right? When we need people to come in and you have taken this job that requires you to come to work, when I know some jobs don't require that, the consequence of that is going to be this reward. So once again, if there are no consequences for not meeting a job requirement, it is not a job requirement. It's just something on your wish list, and it degrades your integrity, which degrades your authority, and it also degrades your reliability and the sense of trust that people have in you. So really, this is a time to turn up the dial on integrity, not to let it slide or let it slip. Any final thoughts for folks, Yvette?
One, I'll just close. I think that was really powerful, Aaron. And I'll just add, as another way to maybe think about it is a standard, right? Mm-hmm. Something we all do is dating. If you at dating in your life, you were like, I want this, 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 and this. And then you were like, nobody's calling me. And then you started to change it. But we have to hold our standards.
That's right.
So that's when you actually know what your real standards are. So you know what your real standards are when you're willing to reward or provide constructive feedback for them. If you're not willing to do it, it's not an actual standard. And my hand is saying, this is a standard. Above this is good, below this is bad. And communicate that very directly. So this has been a great discussion. Thank you to every single person that commented and listened in. You helped make this happen. If you're watching on the recording, I am so happy you took time out of your day to do that. Aaron and I are here for you. We are so excited to be here. Reach out to us to help you with your organizations. And I hope you have a freaking fantastic week. And if you implement one of these things, if you pay us absolutely nothing and you implement it for free and just tell us, we usually love it. I love it.
Man. So rewarding.
Just want to hear that you have gotten value from this.
Oh, thank you so much for asking for that, Yvette. Yeah, when people call, I used to be a high school teacher, and every once in a while, somebody will look me up on Facebook and they'll say, this thing that you said that I don't even remember ever saying. It really made a difference for me. It set me up to succeed. Any kind of feedback, no matter how fresh or, even if it's decades old like that is, I got one of those just a couple weeks ago. It's so rewarding, and it really tells us that the time that we've spent talking to you was really well spent. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you for caring about boosting performance and retention. And because I just love the pursuit of excellence, and so I appreciate anybody who will join me, as you all have, in that pursuit. Oh, we've got a question. So before we run away, let's see. Ali asks, what feature would you recommend for workforce management to support with retention and performance? So I'm not quite sure I understand that question, but I bet Yvette and I will each kind of take a stab at giving you a suggestion here. Yvette?
Yeah, and Ali, if you want more beyond, just message. So
Yeah.
for anyone that's hearing this question, for Ali and for anyone, just real quick. So it sounds like when you're talking about workforce management, there might be different parts of your workforce, and you're thinking, you said retention and performance, so maybe it's an either or thing. That's kind of what I'm hearing. Um, so a couple of things wrapped up is one, first of all, people need to want to come to work for you, and that's benefits, that's pay, that's soft makes things sound less important, but it just means actually things that are harder to develop. So, for example, it's actually easier for a lot of people to learn how to do, Excel than it is necessary to learn how to listen with
Mm.
empathy, right? So you need to think about those kinds of things. And for the retention piece, I would actually ask questions, and you can do things like in, surveys and also a net promoter score. So there are specific questions that you can ask, and if you DM me, I can even share with you an example. You can see the net promoter score that people have for working there, and break it out by groups. So often what you'll find is there'll be certain groups of people. Maybe it's blue collar, white collar, maybe it's different offices, maybe it's women, maybe it's people of color that have a completely different working experience in the same company, and you're missing the detail because you're not categorizing. The second thing about performance is there must be really tight KPIs. If someone does not know how they help with profitability, help make customers happy, or if there's a third metric that's important to you, then they don't understand what the heck they're doing at their job fundamentally. So being able to have those clear performance metrics, I recommend that you're reviewing performance metrics with people depending on the level, once or once a week or every 2 weeks. And you may think that this is really scary, but actually it helps because people want clarity, they want structure. So if there's a lot of clarity around what I'm expected to do, it takes the guesswork out, which is a lot of stress. And so that boosts performance. It also boosts retention because you've taken anxiety and uncertainty out of the workforce. The other thing that I would recommend is when you have performance metrics, there are actual metrics and they can be measured with numbers. Some are qualitative, but a lot measured with numbers. And before that call, you have a specific template. The person who is receiving the person whose metric it is, they put it into the document. Very small detail, but massive shift in thinking. It is no longer my boss is measuring me. It is these are the activities that occurred. This is the outcome from those activities, and these are the results. And we're going to have a conversation with both of us on the same side of the table about how we can improve your results, or we can celebrate your results, whatever the situation is. So to recap, I was talking about one, making it an attractive place to work, using things like surveys, net promoter score, recognizing different populations have a different experience of working in the same company. On the performance piece, one, have clear performance metrics that can be numbered. Have people understand how they add to profitability, customer service, or anything else that's key. And when you have that performance conversation, let them put the metric in the template, because it then becomes a report of activities and it's not you on them. And then before the meeting, they pretty much know exactly how it's going to go because they have had to look and think and process the outcomes that they had provided. So Ali and others, I hope that's super helpful to you. Aaron, I'd love to hear you jump in on this.
You've set me up beautifully for my suggestion. So thank you for that. My suggestion is this. Annual reviews are not good. Nobody likes them. Everybody dreads them. They occupy a ton of time and they don't deliver much value. So I'm going to tell you a very brief story about a CEO who reached out to me early in COVID. And he said, I had a salesperson come to me and say, this is, I don't know, maybe a quarter, 3 or 4 months into COVID, and say, I know my numbers are way down. Are you going to fire me? Right. So when Yvette was talking about anxiety, right? Anxiety is a performance killer and it is a retention killer. And what the CEO actually said to me was, why am I so scary that it took him so long to come to me? And my response was, you are so not scary that even though he's been anxious about this for a long time, he went around his manager to ask you if you were going to fire him. Right. So I would look instead at the manager, see if the manager is scary. Not that we're looking for ways to come down on the manager, but rather we're looking for ways to encourage the manager to be more approachable. So that's piece number one, is you can alleviate anxiety by being approachable and making sure that people's managers are approachable so that they can have those voluntary performance conversations. And then here's the kicker. You've got to be having frequent performance conversations, not just specific feedback about this, that, and the other, although I recommend that strongly, but also about how are you doing in my estimation overall? Are you meeting my expectations? Are you exceeding my expectations, and by how much? Or are you falling short of my expectations, and exactly how? And by exactly how much, which is where Yvette's you've got to have measurable metrics comes in. You've got to be having that conversation much more frequently than annually. It doesn't have to be as formal, but it does have to be there. Monthly is wonderful. Every other month is really good. And every quarter is okay. At a minimum, every quarter, be having these conversations, because people are less anxious knowing I'm falling short of expectations by this much than they are simply wondering, am I meeting expectations? And I would say, this is anecdotal based on my experience. I would say that probably more than 80% of the employees in our world, in our country, do not know how they stack up against their managers' performance expectations on a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month basis, and it causes them tremendous anxiety. So my answer to you, Ali, have very frequent conversations about how people's performance is stacking up to your expectations.
Yeah, such a good answer.
Yeah, really good question. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
All right, folks, that really is the end of our time. I want to say, as Yvette did earlier, thank you so much for joining us. And I'll repeat again, thank you so much for joining us in the pursuit of excellence in leadership. It's making the world a better place.
Yes. All right. Thank you. It's been an honor to be with you today.